Great, we did again. We're live, hopefully. Yeah, I will double check just to be sure. But yeah, once again, the Security Break podcast is live, and today with me there's Pasquale Striparo. Hi, Pasquale, how are you?
Hi. Thanks for having me. All good.
That's great. Good. So, welcome back. If this is the first time, this is just a little project of mine where I invite cool people like Pasquale this time, just to have a random conversation on some of the last security news. And the goal is just to have the conversation, learn in the process, just from different background, different knowledge that the other person has compared to me. And hopefully anyone watching this can also learn something in the process, maybe contribute a little bit, just because this is live at this moment. You can definitely use the chat here to contribute a little bit and talk with us. Otherwise, even later on, this will be still available on YouTube. So feel free to watch that, comment that, let us know if you have any feedback for us, anything that we can improve, or just if you are enjoying this and I should just do it a little more for a few more episodes. So that's it. As I said, I'm so happy to have Pasquale today with me. And maybe, Pasquale, do you want to introduce yourself just, briefly?
Yeah. Try to be quick and as less boring as possible, so we can move then to the more interesting stuff. But just to give a bit of background, I'm an independent security researcher right now. So this means my daily job, I track threat groups. I'm mostly focusing on state-sponsored threat actors, but like also, of course, cybercrime is part of the game as well. My background, mostly I started as a digital forensics engineer, and then I moved more into mobile forensics. That was mostly a passion of mine. And then moved into research for a bit at the European Commission, and then the last 10 years I've been fully focusing on incident response, malware analysis, and threat intelligence in a different organization. And since exactly 1 year, I'm now independent. So yeah, that's in a nutshell.
That's very cool, and I think it's also pretty difficult to summarize everything. I know you have a very long background, and there's a lot to just to say about it. But I know there are you spoke about it in other other formats, other resources that are out there on the internet. I'll put Pasquale contact in the description if anyone wants to reach out to him for any reason. But if you just search for him, I'm sure you will find something where he talks a little more about all of his background and what he does. And I'm sure it's gonna be very interesting, or at least it's for me. Hopefully, it'll be for you as well. That's cool. So the idea today is this one. I'm gonna share my screen. We've collected a couple of news and articles, as I said, and after just introducing the article itself, we're gonna just discuss about it and see what we think about it, what could be consequences or just relations and everything. So let me try to share my screen here. Here it is. Okay, that's better. Great. So the first one is an article from the blog from Chris Krebs. By the way, I always suggest this resource here. I think all of the articles are often very interesting. And this time, this is talking about something that affected, I will say, the Juniper Networks company. If you don't know about it, it's basically I will say network devices vendor. So they provide hardware and software related to network and network security. Probably, I think they have
mostly routers and related services around.
Yeah. And the thing is that apparently a guy from working for one of the customers of Juniper Networks basically was looking for some documentation, some information on their customer portal, and realized that he was actually able to find out information not only about their own devices, like their company's devices, but also any other devices that Juniper Networks has sold to any other customers. Or we don't know if all of them, but definitely a lot of other customers are on the world, where basically very easy to search for. I think it's specified in there that just to do an example, the researcher that's called Locan George, by the way, try to look for Amazon.com and find out a list of devices that were sold to that specific company, but you could search for anything basically. Also, because I will say that Juniper Networks is one of the probably one of the market leaders out there, so you're gonna find out a lot of customers, right? So that's the thing, and it's interesting for us, I would say, because of course, if you get to know which devices a specific company has, and if they are currently being supported, meaning that Juniper is providing patches and security updates, right? You'll also get to know very easily if not only they have specific devices, but also if maybe they are vulnerable to some specific vulnerabilities, right? It's very easy to go in there, look for CVEs affecting a specific vendor or specific device. And if you have, this device is not supported since, I don't know, 2 years, you can definitely see, this is going to be definitely vulnerable to that specific vulnerability. So it's a way, I would say, that attackers could use potentially to do some reconnaissance, right? So, I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about. First of all, how do we think this, how bad this is, right? Does this really pose a security risk of some kind? Is this a big issue, or maybe not? Maybe it's not that risky. What do you think?
So it's definitely interesting. So this actually came out. This guy, it's actually is an internal. I mean, not to blame the internet always. It's it wasn't like even during a security assessment or testing. Like it was just trying to configure the network, and by say, hey, let me see if I can just Google kind of here the name of other companies. And he found out this information, and which on one hand was just contractual information, like, yes, you have, this is up to date. But being one of the user, he knows that, well, if you don't have the contract in place, the support in place, then you can get patches. So that was for sure an interesting type of knowledge. The other details I think I mentioned there were like, it's also like location-wise, so you can also place like, okay, these are routers that it's in the Southeast Asia network of Amazon.com. So it's also like, it's very, very quite almost targeted type of information you can use. Another way to tone down a bit, so it's definitely a risk, it's definitely bad. But on the other hand, like, you know, also when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's bad. But then I was like, wait a second, you need, I mean, this guy was a customer. So you need to have a customer. You need to already be a customer, which doesn't mean anything. I mean, if you know that this is a vulnerability, you can, it's so cheap to get and become a customer if you can gain the knowledge of potentially exploiting so many things that it's a worth investment for a criminal that has the capability and the intent to go ahead poses a threat to this. But it's, of course, needs to be said that this has to be toned down. It's not like a full remote exploitation type of vulnerability. It requires you to have an account, to be a customer of Juniper, and so be part of the network. So it's bad. It's less available to anybody as initially expected. So it's that's something to keep into account for sure. To me, what was interesting here, and it's another sign of like, it's the trying to understand a bit the like, you know, sure, vulnerable software, misconfiguration and everything, but apparently this was so basically the Juniper portal was like using kind of was just the UI of the Salesforce engine in the background, and looks like there were not enough, like the problem was like with some permits. So Juniper as a Salesforce customer didn't have enough permit to configure. So it was this kind of to prove that it shows the complexity that it's an overlay system we built for ourselves. Like we are shooting ourselves in the foot nowadays, because we keep building and adding complexity instead of reducing it. Because if we have learned anything, like just also from software type of vulnerability, it's you know, the more complexity, the more easy is to introduce an issue, a problem, a bug in the software, or here a misconfiguration, and the more difficult is to find it, because if you need to go through so many dependencies, so many connections, it's just a nightmare. So this is like it seems to have been like a basic permission type of configuration thing, but it's not that easy, straightforward to probably to find it. And this is a serious concern, because this is where we are getting, unfortunately, as I was saying, like feels any new system, any new startup, it's like building something on top of something else, which has other dependencies, which it gets so intricated, and especially big corporation, that it's like, it's a compounding, like you keep going. It's like, okay, I bought this service 10 years ago, and they keep adding stuff on top of it. I don't even know. It's like, I feel it's almost like when you enter in a company as a. I remember I was doing this my first jobs, and then I gave up. Like, hey, the first thing I was asking was a network topology diagram. Like nobody has the actual file. No. And the same goes with I'm pretty sure if you ask for the services, that's the same thing. And so this is something I push a lot, which somebody may say, it's an information that should be available internally. And I push this a lot when I either present or talk to people about, I mean, clearly I'm biased on the Intel side, because that's what I do daily basis. But having also built Intel teams, it's like, this is very much into the requirements phase. And it's something like I always urge security team and Intel team, especially if the org has one, to do. Like when you start off, you need to know what you're protecting. Means you need to know also all your risk. You need to know all the dependencies. So like, I remember like when I was setting up the team, I was like, okay, first 3 months is like, we do not exist. So we need to build the requirements. You need to go and talk to, as a security team, let's say you don't need, maybe you're not mature enough that you need to have a full Intel team. As a security team, you need to protect your network, your company. So you need to know what you're protecting, what you need to look for. I remember once I asked, okay, do we have any Mac system in the company? No, it's all Windows. And then later we found out there were 4,000. The whole marketing department was Mac. Nobody knew. I'm like, that's
just a
not
few of them, right?
Yeah, and this was easy to spot because it's like, does anybody use a Mac in the company? We should see from the traffic. It's easy to do detection of devices in your network. For this type of services, which it's actually now we're building a lot more into services, it's mostly services in our networks and dependencies. It's still something like I think, and this is like an advice I always give as a requirement phase, regardless whether you're building or not an Intel team, requirements. This is another thing. Like people see, you may see online like this maturity model, like Intel. It's the last thing, which is true. You first need to build, visibility detection, and Intel is the last piece. Once you have matured everything else, what is mistaken by people and some other experts online is that Intel is not a block only. It's a stream. So the initial block, the requirement, doesn't matter if you're going to build a full Intel team later. It's something that will help you find the gaps, visibility gaps. And clearly here you have a visibility gap because you need to know that, okay, we have those services in the company. What do we expose on the internet? Okay, this portal to find out, okay, what does this portal depend on? Okay, depends on this other service. Okay, who's the service? Salesforce. Okay, so of course it gets growing, messy, and chaotic. But first of all, you are aware if you start at least, and then you can also prioritize. You will never be able to look for everything. That's either you are probably Google or Microsoft, and even there it's hard. But otherwise, other companies, it's like check what you have, what your dependencies, and then prioritize, because that's a matter of risk. And then you need to say, okay, these are the top 2 risks I'm willing to take, and these are the risks I definitely need to mitigate and make sure that I have full coverage and monitor for that.
Yeah, I would say that's always the case, right? With any company, with any organization, and even though that's the first step that anyone needs to do, still it's probably the most difficult one, right? Like sometimes companies start doing some fancy stuff just because it seems right to do so, while the first thing, the very basic, is getting to know your own environment, getting to know everything you have, all of your assets, and then understand what to do based on that, right?
I get that it's boring, or at least less. I don't find it boring. It's at least for sure less fancy than, okay, now let's start track APT, whatever number you're going to put on it.
Yeah.
But it's you will eventually fail because you don't know what you're looking for, what you're protecting, and things will just bump up when it's too late, usually, like in this case. So it's an exercise I always advise everybody to do. There is it's not a type of self-promotion, but there is a presentation I made 2018, I believe was 2019, was pre-pandemic, like about Intel requirements. Your requirements are not my requirements, and there I try to specify, like, you have categories that the business one, the purely tech ones. And this is a part of a mix, like, because maybe, I don't know, this is, you can say, there are some software in some complex organization which are, even if you talk to the IT team, they may not be aware of, because it's software just used, let's say, by HR or by other teams. So they have their own internal IT team, maybe. So it's like, okay, they manage, they buy it, they do the deployment and everything. But the only way to know how your company works and what you may have, it's, okay, let's start. What are the main business? Do we have marketing, HR, sales, procurement? Okay, I'm going to talk to each one of them and ask them, let's see how they organize. Do they use their own internal configuration? Do they use their own team? Do we have a centralized IT team? Then I talk only to them. So it's an exercise that it's not a panacea, but it's definitely what I strongly advise everybody to do, regardless whether you're going to be. I mean, it's part of the Intel kind of journey, but it's useful regardless whether you're going to end up building a full intelligence team, because it will, get your.
It's going to be
We give
beneficial
you a
anyway,
visibility
right?
gap. Yeah. Knowledge and visibility gap. It's the main problem we have. It's visibility. This is a clear problem of visibility. You as a Juniper company, you're not aware of this.
Absolutely.
So
Just
it's definitely because just to conclude, it's worth it because it's at the moment is the key thing, and we may talk a bit later also with the other article, because again we cannot think and claim that, oh, I'm doing a pen test and then I know I'm secure, or I have this type of software. There is no 100% security. Even the most secure and well thought and planned network software service will eventually have a bug, an issue, or there will be a human misconfiguration. The only way is visibility. That's what you do in all the cases. So that's the way to try to mitigate.
Yeah. We always try to do our best, even though we know that anytime, let's say a data breach can always happen, because something is missing, because there's a new vulnerability we don't even know about or whatever. But definitely there's some basics that everyone should follow. Just a couple of things that you mentioned, I think they're very interesting, and then we'll move to the next one. First of all, you mentioned that, of course, you have to be a customer of Juniper's, right, to get access to that information. Actually, you had to, because apparently it was fixed now.
Yeah, because
But the thing is, could this have been some sort of supply chain attack? Right? Let's say that I get access to a network from a customer of Universe as an attacker, right? And then I somehow I discovered that I can get access to their customer support portal, and maybe for that reason find out about a new vulnerability and move to a new network from another company. Does that
no,
make sense?
absolutely. This classify in my book under supply chain. This is a good point, because I often I end up, when we talk about supply chain, what we all have in mind is supply chain is, oh, you hacked company like SolarWind. You hacked company X. You Trojanized the update, and they got pushed to my network, and now you have foothold in my network because you own it. While it's often very, so there has been especially again, SolarWind was a big, massive case, very big target, got to spotlight, so people immediately and providers shifted towards let's increase the way we can verify that updates are legit, that are happening, that there is no compromise. So, but everybody was focusing, and it still is. I still see people like we're focusing on the software supply chain, like updates part.
Right.
But this, I call it the service or kind of supply chain. I mean, this is still supply chain, because you are hacking. Here you are not hacking, because let's say if you buy you're not officially breaching, but you're buying, let's say I buy a Juniper, I become customer because it's going to cost very low to then breach into Amazon. Right. So I'm not hacking Juniper, I'm just misusing in order to get relevant information. But it's part of your supply chain, no? It's part of the services that you have as let's say you're Amazon. So I'm injecting myself into your supply chain, into your service supply chain. And this is something we don't see. Like this is, for example, very critical into the ICS space, or even with MSSP. Those are companies in the ICS space. For example, you have a lot of remote, because you have equipment, wind turbines or things like this that are far remote, in remote places. Imagine you have a malfunctioning, you need the vendor, hey, can you check what the hell is going on? And you can't ship people immediately in the middle of nowhere. So there is often a remote from the vendor, a remote connection to maintenance, and the same goes just even normal IT business, MSSP. It's like you have kind of super privileged access to my network because you need to do security if anything happens.
Yeah, possibly
And if
administrative access, right?
yeah, super high level privileged. So if I manage to hack you, most likely I have access to 40. I mean, I hack one and I have access to 40 other networks. So it's the network supply chain has gone a bit in the kind of gotten, not forgotten, but has less media attention, less people attention. While I think it's still crucial actually. Probably because I would say it is probably easier if you like hacking into a company, inject into their build system. It's a very high sophisticated, like breaching into a network of a vendor and then pivoting and ending up into getting another connection. It's probably easier, and there is more of this. So it's probably available to more attackers as a capability than the other
Yeah.
one we are all worried about. But it's less sexy. I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah, I think I definitely agree with you. And by the way, this conversation is super interesting. But as I mentioned to you while we were offline, we have limited time, so I'm gonna,
Yeah,
stop
move
you
on.
and
Let's move on. Yeah, stop me anytime.
move to the next one,
Otherwise, I tend to talk too much.
right? But yeah, it's super interesting. I think we could potentially go on with just the first news for more than an hour very easily. But we have something more. This is actually the second news from today, and I think there are a couple of interesting things from regarding this as well, especially because I think somehow because of your background in digital forensics, somehow this could be we could have a nice conversation. So the point here is that there was like a public statement from Meta. If you don't know about this, Meta is the company behind Facebook, Instagram, and I think they have a new social network right now that I don't remember the name. But anyway, definitely you'll know about this. And this is a period where everyone is already talking about elections in the US, but also, of course, in other countries as well. And the thing is that all of the social network companies are always on the radar, let's say, because of previous events we had from misinformation to manipulation of voting and so on and so forth. So they're always pushed, but also they are definitely trying to get ahead of new technologies, new ways to exploit their own technologies and so on and so forth. The new thing today is, of course, artificial intelligence, AI, right? And everyone is talking about all of the potential misuses or just exploitation of these technologies in order to spread misinformation or just to manipulate the information about anything. But it's definitely um, more it's riskier and more interesting regarding uh, elections. And the thing is that everyone right now today can go on ChatGPT or Google Bard or whatever and produce very easily and very quickly some made up information, being those images, videos, audios, or even just text, and maybe push that or post that on any social media, right? So Meta is trying to work on something to, I will not say prevent it, but just to regulate that kind of actions, of activity. And the way they are going to do this, and this is their own statement, is basically labeling AI created images with a watermark that says basically created by AI, right? And another thing that is very interesting to me is not only the fact that they are going to label. That's, I will say, that's fine. I don't see any bad thing about it. The thing is, like, my first question while reading this was how are they going to identify, right, the AI images on the first place before watermarking it? And the thing is that they basically require, right, some metadata in the image itself. What are metadata? Very, very, just to be quick on this. we're talking about data about the data, right? So they are, let's say, hidden information that you can find on any kind of files, included, images, where you specify who created the image, when it was done, with which technology, and so on and so forth, depending on what kind of metadata you're using, what kind of operating system, and so on and so forth. So the thing is that there is a requirement, right? So what if that requirement is not fulfilled by the person or the vendor or whoever, right? Is this a thing that is even useful at any level? I mean,
So it's, I mean, clearly now everything, we're entering in a new era also from a security perspective,
right,
due to AI, and this is especially for this information. More than regulating, what they're trying to do is just like awareness, like inform, like, okay, you as a user, you should be informed that this is not a real content. As you say, though, again, titles are always like, oh, well, they're just going to label it. And then if you, my reading was clearly like, okay, they will, as a company, apply watermark, and I think there's going to be, my understanding is that there is an idea, at least the big player, they will watermark. It's in their interest not to have their own technology also misused, right? Meta and Google and Microsoft, they all provide with Bar, with ChatGPT, DALI, and so on and so forth service. So you don't want this to get too much misused or abused. But this indeed, they also say, like, first of all, it works only with images. It doesn't work with text.
right.
And it only works with images that have been watermarked. So sure, the official images coming directly from DALI and Meta, whatever is going to be their engine, are going to be watermarked. Okay. But the problem, and as I stated here, was the election year. So the problem with this information, like, I'm not going to use one of those if I need to create. Sure, those are the best one, but there is so many free. I mean, now it's so accessible, the technology, that you can train and create and have your own model and do enough stuff without having to go through the watermarking thing. So this is a big limitation. But the biggest to me is not, I mean, even leave aside the watermarking part. The biggest limitation is the image versus text. Because sure, I mean, there have been since a while now that, and this is something I think a problem that if there is any good coder machine learning expert, this is a good problem to tackle, detecting AI generated content with enough accuracy to be, let's say, to have good results. But text is I mean, especially because the stage behind this article is correct. This is a crazy year. There is I mean, it's election not only in the US. It's 7 of the 10 biggest. I mean, there was this month a nice article on the foreign policy, the last issues. This is like 7 of the 10 biggest countries are going to vote. 40% of the global population is going to vote. This is insane. I mean, this year can flip completely the how do we handle it. And clearly nowadays the geopolitical equilibrium are very, very thin and very, very unstable. And so this is a big risk because this information is not new, especially there is enough written about this. It goes long, especially from like Russia. It's a huge problem. And so what worries me is mostly that there is apparently, I'm sure there is an effort, but there is nowhere talked about that this is somebody is looking to find a solution for this for the text. And this year is going to be crucial, especially also because us as a user, we don't get taught critical thinking skills. I mean, this is something that if you are into threat intel a lot, it's something you need to. I mean, you cannot do well without this as a skill. Being a threat intel analyst doesn't necessarily equal you can know or you do critical thinking. So it's not granted, but it's something you must be exposed. But in general, what I found it. So I'm very, another disclaimer and bias. Like I'm very, very, very into critical thinking. I like it a lot. I keep also public reading list on my website for like books and resources I found useful. And when I started getting more into this, like 10 years ago, when I was getting more exposed into threat intel, to me it's crazy that we don't teach these skills. This is something should be taught at school, in school, because you should be, especially nowadays, it's important because you read garbage all day long most of the times. Because social media like Twitter, Facebook, it's a lot of garbage, not necessarily from bot or AI generated, it's just already other people that are just misinformed people and go on with pushing misinformation. So this is something that it's scaring because of the context of the election year. And I mean, if you play with text generated OpenAI, like to generate some of the content, like you can ask, hey, write me an open-ed, or like I write an article in the style of Giorgio from The Economist, and you will get a piece on the topic you want, which it's very much resembling your style as you economist writer. And that's I mean, it's very hard for a trained mind to spot this. This is a huge problem. I'm not aware of. Are you aware of any of those efforts on text
No.
or other efforts similar to this to Meta? Because this seems
mean,
very. I mean, I appreciate the coming forward. It's seems like a very thin effort still.
Yeah. That's actually one of the points that I was going to point out there. The thing is, actually, you mentioned two things that I think are very interesting. First of all, is that maybe the final goal here is more about awareness, right? And the thing that, of course, Facebook and Meta is trying to just make people aware that this can happen, that information can be manipulated also using AI, and I will say that that's appreciated, and I will say that's also one of the goal of this podcast right here, right? The thing is that nice, we have a label on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but we already pointed out that text can be generated by AI, or videos or audios, and Meta specified that this is going to be just for images. So even though you
marked images,
right, so
even a small subset.
Yeah, that means even though you find an image with a label on it that says created by AI, that doesn't mean that anything else without the label is not
And
generated by
it may also give us a false sense of security to some people, like like the lock, the famous lock. Oh, there is a lock, okay, and nothing can go wrong. It's connection is secure. So if people may say, okay, if there is no label, then must be original. And probably I don't know if I stated maybe I toned down too much. I'm not saying that it's not good enough, because actually, as a human being, we are very vivid. So an image, it gets spreads very quickly and faster than a text, because you see, like you can fake kids dead due to U.S. bombing and say, oh, U.S., like you want to blame the U.S. or whatever else. That image, you don't need to read. You don't need to. I mean, you don't need to read the content in English, but you are maybe Italian and you don't understand English. You are French, so the image doesn't require language. So images, on one hand, is more powerful actually, because it's vivid, because it's kind of countryless, borderless, and it can get viral very quickly, especially very crafted, vivid images. So it's a good effort. The problem, it's like saying, oh, we are going to detect AI generated because there is a watermark. Like there is no, what's the magic? Like, okay, I just check metadata, and in the metadata there is this. It's like I would like, especially from a powerhouse like Meta is gonna be going full. Like they finally, got rid of the metaverse. Probably, I don't know, but it's kind of not really anymore. After they put the leg on the head of Zuckerberg, they kind of now. They're gonna go heavy. They did very nice investment in terms of people, like talent in AI. That they're gonna move hard on it.
Yeah.
So I would hope and maybe they're working on it. They're just not ready to come forward
Yeah.
because it takes time to get results. Probably, if you announce it too early and the results are not that good, the risk is counter. Like
Yeah.
it's counterproductive. So people will lose faith completely on it. But I
That's
hope, even if
that's
it's only images, which is easier than text to detect, as I can see that as a problem to be easier to tackle. But it cannot be that only if it's watermarked you can detect it. That's
yeah.
not enough.
I mean, that's the other topic, right? The thing that, once again, okay, we need a label in the metadata to do this, and that's fine. And I also agree that most of the major AI providers out there are going to do it because it's in their interest, and possibly they will have also some, I would say, external pressure to do anything they can, of course. But the other thing is that you know there are so many other providers that are very small and not well known as much as, of course, Google or OpenAI or whatever, that maybe are not going to do that, right? And there are also so many open source softwares, right, that and open source models that you can use on your own, or attackers can use, right? And maybe after this announcement from Meta, they will have more interest in working on their own open source technologies to run their misinformation campaigns or whatever. And that's still a lot of data that can be created that will definitely not have a label in the metadata, right? And the thing that there's some information about it in the article itself, that where they say they're working on automatic identification, but they are not there yet. And the thing is that if Meta, which is one of the biggest tech company out there, which definitely have an interest in this kind of technology, cannot even start doing that kind of identification, that's already says a lot to me, right? It says to me that
Uh,
we're not there. It's not going to happen, at least not in
yes and no,
okay.
because the other thing you should consider is that if, let's say, there is a group of folks among your listeners maybe that have good skills about,
Right.
again, ML, AI coding. If you take this as your main problem, you probably will solve it faster than Meta. That's not Meta first problem. Like, it's
Okay.
not their top priority. So they have a shit ton of resources, but they may allocate 2% of it to this problem, which
That's
is
true.
still like huge compared to other. But let's say if you now decide to start a new company focusing on AI safety and security, kind of trust and safety AI, that you want to be able just to, your goal is just to build algorithms able to detect fake or AI generated content.
Right.
So that's your only and main objective. So it's a different. So the fact that Meta is not there, we don't know how much. I mean, we know that they are a AI powerhouse. We know they have so much talent. They have, of course, so much money infrastructure that they could invest. But the point is how much of this pie it's allocated to tackling the fake content
Right.
labeling problem.
Whether
So
that's really a priority
for
internally. I
sure
mean,
is, yeah, for sure is high in the list. But how much do they put? It doesn't mean necessarily that if they cannot do it because they may provide less
yeah, that's
than
a fair point.
others.
That's definitely a fair point. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I feel I'm just worried because I think maybe we have already some companies that just do that, right? That they want to run a business out of the automatic identification of AI generated content. But the thing is that in the meanwhile, that AI generated content gets better and better basically every month, right? We have
Yeah, it will get harder and
releases
harder
and
for
everything.
sure.
So it's probably that I'm just, I don't know, scared by by
It's a tough problem. I agree. And also, if what I'm scared of actually, it's that if the only way, I hope again there is something more cooking in the background, like they're working on other ways to detect this.
Hmm.
Because I can think about, like, okay, if the only way you can detect AI generated image is by looking for the watermark, how long is it going to take to
Exactly.
find and reverse engineer and put that watermark on a legit image? And once you put that, that's like this. It's like if I were a kind of, let's say, disinformation, say, Russian actor, my goal is to discredit, because if I just manage to put some doubts on the technology that is supposedly able to label correctly what is fake content and what it's not, but
Hmm.
then actually I can inject this and make you get on the wrong side. So, like, okay, you say that it's label AI generated while it is not, then people stop believing on that label, and then it's free reign for the disinformation guys. So that's
Yeah,
it's
and
always a catch in the mouse,
of course,
cat
of
and the
course.
mouse game. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even mention the fact that you could just scrape out the metadata from the file before uploading it. So
I mean, I hope it's they're much more in, like, it's not just like metadata easy property to find it. They are gonna
yeah,
be very much like, say, integrated into. It's not like I send you a PDF with the draft clearly
I
written in
hope
the
so.
background.
I
No,
hope so. Like,
I'm confident this type of metadata are something which is much more embedded. It's
mhm.
not that easy to. But again, you cannot rely on security to obscurity. You
Yeah.
just don't say how you put the. So if it's not uh,
No, I
proof.
mean, I think there are some open standards they are working on, and a couple of those are mentioned even in the article. By the way, I didn't mention this. I'm going to put all of the articles links in the description of the video, so feel free to go in there, do your own research, maybe understand more than what we are just talking about right now, and let us know maybe if you know something else that's definitely appreciated. So two of those standards are mentioned in the article, and they are made up specifically for this reason. So I also hope they are difficult to scrape out. But yeah, we will see how it goes. It's
No,
definitely
no, it's definitely an interesting problem, and there will be more to come to this for sure.
absolutely. But I think that's it for this news because we have still a lot more to talk about today. So I'm
I
gonna
will try
jump
to
to
be
the
more concise.
no, that's fine. That's my job to contain you, let's say. But I definitely appreciate a lot. All of the discussion, all of the ideas that comes out. I always say that I do appreciate if anyone's going to watch this and listen to this and uh, gains any value out of it. But I'm already getting value myself, just talking with you. So that's fine. I will hope to have more time, but that's how it goes, right? So that said, third news of the day. In this, I'm just going through my feed today, and a lot of people are talking about this. It's even bigger than I thought. Apparently, for the public out there. So we are talking about Canada, which I think one of their institutions were recently discussing about the problem of car theft, right? That has been an increasing issue, especially in their country, but I will say that's probably the same in other countries as well. And one of the issues that they think it's the worst and they have to address, it's the fact that there are technologies and tools out there that make fairly easy to basically exploit radio communications that are used for the I would say the locks. How would you call it? Just to open the car
Yeah.
with your remote. And since there are so many videos on the internet on how to use those tools or just to show how they are effective, let's say, it's been an interesting point, and they are now planning to definitely ban the importation of those tools and technologies into Canada. And one of these technologies that it's specifically mentioned is the Flipper Zero. So we actually have an image here, a photo here. This has been a very famous tool slash toy, I would say, out there, that everyone is talking about, everyone is buying, everyone is testing, and it's basically like a multi-use tool that can, copy, replicate anything regarding wireless communications, radio communication of any type. And we're talking about, those cards that you use to open your door at the hotel, or Bluetooth communications, or anything you use to even to pay. We use an NFC today, right? I'm not sure if you can do anything with payment cards, but that's definitely one of the radio technologies this kind of tool is targeting. And also, of course, any remote that is going to open a car or a garage or something can be targeted by this kind of tool. Now, the kind of discussion that is going on out there is the fact that, does it? Well, I understand why they are addressing this kind of technologies, but does it make sense? Is it effective to ban a technology, or the just selling and doing commercials about this to stop that kind of risk? Is that a thing? As do we have any examples of similar things that happened before and actually worked?
I mean, no, because clearly they didn't study history, and the prohibitionism kind of never worked. I mean, it feels like a bit going back to the crypto war in the 90s,
Right.
like crypto, and I mean the real meaning of crypto, not the bastardized use that is being done nowadays. So when governments were trying to outlaw cryptography because, bad guys can use it and we cannot intercept their communication, so nobody should use it. So it's
I mean, that's still going on, right? We had multiple.
Yeah, it's every now and then somebody trying to do like trying to break encryption or to put some backdoors. It's a stupid, and this is the same. It's so historically we know that this doesn't work because you're going to prevent just random people to buy it, because when I did my thesis, I remember my bachelor thesis was on writing a tool to do DRM on digital content, on digital rights management, so like copyrights. And I remember and then I was thinking, but then somebody skilled can just break it. And at the end, one of my advisors was like, the goal is to keep people honest. It's with this thing, you will not prevent the criminal for buying Flipper Zero, ordering it even in the underground forum, or just buying it from somewhere else, put it in the pocket, and like knives, right? You can put it wherever you want. You can assemble, and if it's not Flipper Zero, you can do it with your do-it-yourself hardware. It's like I always feel it's like banning kitchen knives because some criminals start to stab people with kitchen knives. So if the primary use is, I mean, a gun, it's a weapon. Right? There is no other use. You can't cook with it. I mean, probably some people may also do that, but it's not made for that purpose. The purpose of a gun is to shoot things and life or death already, or objects. So there is no way around it. That's something, yes, you know what you can use it for. You cannot say, go out with a loaded gun to sunbathe. But this is built, it's of course built. I like some of the comments in the article that, which is funny, like Flipper Zero cannot be used, some of the executive or the people behind that, like, cannot be used to jack the car, or the new car cannot do that, or it requires other stuff. Yes, of course you can. It's intended, but the point is, this is a tool intended for actually the security testing. But in general, it's like you're not gonna block criminals, because now they know the problem is actually on the other side. It's like, how can we build secure by design, or more secure entry locks for cars, for example, or for doors? I don't know, because I've seen some video like that. They were getting close to, because usually you drop your keys at the entrance, so they
Right.
get close with a big antenna, and then they kind of trigger the car to, I don't know, maybe have a remote key card that if it's closed, just it's off, and regardless of how much radio signal you try to inject, nothing happens. I'm just speculating, not too sure if it's
Yeah.
possible. I'm not a hardware guy. But we this is a cure for the symptoms, not for the cause. So if it's not this, they will do their own Flipper Zero with probably a Raspberry Pi
Right.
customized. And what are we gonna do? Ban Raspberry Pi next, and what's next? The one would come later. So sure, try to, I don't know, but we should look, okay. Probably those are like we're both Italian, so I say like probably the system kind of a scola pasta. It's like the things where for the non-Italian listeners, it's the container where you throw the pasta with the water so that it's full of holes, so that the water goes down and you just keep the pasta. So are those things full of holes? Are security scola pasta? And then that's where we should maybe require that car manufacturers implement certain type of controls, certain level of security. You want to give the features of accessing your car from the internet. Okay, it must be secure, otherwise you are fined. So I find this stupid as a reaction to ban it.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's a lot we like I could say about this. Well, first of all, like, okay, we are talking about the Flipper Zero, that is a very specific product here, right? But what about any other tool that is similar to this? Is the Canada government going to track all of the radio frequency exploitation tools out there? Or is it going to ban, I don't know, Raspberry Pis because it can be used potentially, right, to build something
No,
like this
it's
yourself at home?
doesn't
Uh,
make any sense
I mean, I would say it's not effective. I understand
at
the
all.
kind of reasoning, but it's just not fixing the issue at all in
I mean,
in
they will
any
see
way.
probably a drop in car hijacking for a month, just the time for the criminals to somebody in the underground come up either with a new way, a new device, or a
Right.
do-it-yourself type of instructions, and then go back to where we were before. So that's not the. You're not solving the problem. You're curating the symptoms and
Absolutely.
not the cause.
And as I'm thinking, I mean, how are you going to stop it, like to enter the borders? I think there are going to be so many so false positives, right? I feel like anyone checking the packages for anything like this will probably block any other technologies just because it
No,
could be
it's
something
it's
like that,
it's impossible to control.
right?
I
You can,
mean, it's only good you can control, like, you can ban, let's say, known resell. Like you will just basically official shops will not be able to sell it.
right,
That's the only way. You cannot check every electronic device that enters your country.
right.
There is just so many. Like my bag when I do the check-in at the airport, it's like filled with devices. So you cannot check everything. You will only be able to stop Amazon and whatever are the other known online shop that sell stuff to Canada, and they cannot do it. But it's, I mean, you just go on the underground
One,
forums and you buy it.
you know,
There will be a
one final
secondary dark
point.
market. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. One final point that I would like to discuss very briefly is, and I'm doing the devil's advocate here, right? You mentioned that this could be like a kitchen knife, right? Which main goal is not to stab people in the back, but it's to actually help you cook. Um, but what about this kind of tools? So what's the goal about of this kind of tool? Is basically to exploit those kind of technologies, right? There's no, I mean, if you are creative, I'm sure you can find a lot of ways to use it for other reasons, but I will probably say that the main objective, the main goal which this tool was designed, was to actually exploit those kind of technologies, to find and use some vulnerabilities in radio frequencies and so on and so forth. So would you really compare this to a radio knife, or would you say this is actually like a gun? It's like, let's say, a digital weapon of some sort.
No, I mean, sure, you can argue that, okay, it was originally designed for security testing, which means breaking into network protocol legally, but still breaking into network protocol, then legally or
Okay.
not. It's like you can, and then it would be the equivalent say, okay, weapons are also used by law enforcement. So
Right.
that's a legit use. Um, it's, I mean, they're not used only for hacking into things. They're used for quality. You can use that for like radio frequency testing, quality signals.
Yeah.
You can use for all sorts of things, not necessarily to hack, of course, as a kind of industry. But the only way to check if you can break into something is trying to break it. Like every technology, how can you? Okay, this is secure by design. I mean, if you try, like after you design it, in theory it's theoretically secure, then what you do a security test, like a stress test. You have like a kind of a physical red team penetration test, side channel attack. You try to do things like, otherwise it's not enough to say on paper was okay. The theory tell us that if we put these two controls, it's unbreakable, and then you put it into practice and it's goes like in 2 seconds. So you need those devices as well, but it's not only for it's not a tool only for hacking.
Right.
It's like for testing radio signals or doing things with radio signals.
So if
It has been built by the community that is closer to the hacking community. So I get it. I get that. But again, the point yeah.
I mean, I could insist that
Well, technology.
I could, argue even more, saying that, okay, maybe you're right, but at that point, I will probably say that only security professional could, have, possess and use this kind of tools, and any other person out there
Like you
which
need a
is not
license like a gun.
right.
It won't work anyway.
No, I definitely agree with you. Actually,
No,
the
no,
point is,
because again, we are curating, we are trying, we are looking at
yeah,
the problem is that the cars are completely insecure.
are vulnerable, right?
That's the problem. So instead of putting effort, money, time, and brain power to think about how can we forbid this thing, just okay, put the same amount of energy and resources to think, hey, how can we make this harder to happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. I always do this also in previous episodes with other guests. I like to replicate this kind of conversation because it's something that we see out there a lot, right? With regulators and just builders and developers doing just their own stuff. And I think it's helpful to kind of find out how there's no let's say um, final statement, final result in this kind of conversation, right? The point is that regulators should do what is more effective to fix the final issue, right? And the thing is that doing this kind of stuff is not going to fix the issue, right? It's a
No,
lot more useful, a lot more effective if you just go to the car, developers and builders and say, you have this kind of issues, we need to fix it, and from now on there will be, more strict requirements for these radio frequencies used on cars or whatever.
yeah,
We're
if you
talking
want to
about
ship a product, you must be accountable for its security. I
right.
mean, of course, not that it's unhackable, but this is something I
Yeah.
was pushing when I was working at the European Commission for data. Really, like, if you are a software company, like you hold personal data, you
Mhm.
must be accountable. If you can prove you did everything in power, let's say there are some security controls which are known or some vulnerability which are known, and you didn't take measures against
Right.
those, then it's this is negligence which you should be accountable for. Of course, if tomorrow there is a 0 day and somebody used the
Yes.
0 day, okay, you cannot. But you want to ship a tech product, okay, you are accountable for its security and have timely updates. You're gonna ship a car and then not having a means to provide update easily, not like super complex stuff that you need to go to the dealer, take a USB, then jump into the car, open it, go down.
Right,
It
right,
has
right.
to be something that any user can do. If you cannot do this, then don't be in the market. But yeah, lobbies and things. It's hard. It's easy to
Yeah.
say, and
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the perfect, let's say, statement to finish the conversation about this news, um, because we have just the last one today. That I think it's gonna be another interesting one. We had discussed a lot about ransomware as an industry, as a community, but also in this podcast specifically. But I still think this is one of the biggest threat nowadays, and we definitely need as a community to keep talking about it and keep learning about it. To be able to address this kind of threat, this kind of issue, and find ways, of course, to address it, respond to it, or possibly prevent it, even though that's not always possible. Now, the thing that happened at this time was that the article is talking about, I think, the FBI specifically. I think they often do that. They put some amount of money, let's say, on the head of criminals and of cyber criminals as well, to anyone which could provide any information that could end up with arresting those people in the end. And they are also doing this with ransomware gangs, what we usually call ransomware gangs, or let's say those threat groups that um, basically use ransomware as their main medium to target organizations. And this time we're talking about a specific one against the I think it's called the Hive, right? Hive ransomware. Um, and it's even more interesting. Um, Apart from the fact that it's a total of 15 millions of dollars, which is a pretty high amount, I would say. I think it's even more interesting because this comes after, I think, last year, U.S. government actually seized a big part of the Hive infrastructure, right? In terms of their basic command and control infrastructure, and that says a lot to me, because the point is that even after a big campaign like the one that happened last year that sees their command and control and everything, uh, you know, apparently that's not enough to stop this kind of threat, this kind of cyber criminals. And the fact that they're just raised, the amount of money they are offering in exchange of information, it says a lot on how big this is a threat for the U.S. government, how big this is a priority, right, for them, compared to other kind of threats, and compared to other kind of criminals. And I mean, I have a few questions, but I will, let you talk about it. Just your first thoughts. What do you think?
yeah, no, it's we have seen also with botnets back in the days that you manage to assess a very strong hit, like seizing C2 server, being able to inject and update all the victims, and then they come back because it's not easy for sure. And the problem, especially now with the ransomware, it's ransomware gang, is that the incentives for them are so high because they operate usually from countries where there is, first of all, no extradition. The local authority, like, it's the law is don't target our people and you can do whatever you want. So they it's what's the risk for them, that they cannot travel abroad in many countries? But it's like the amount of money they're getting is insane. The problem is now, and I would say that it's a US problem. It's a global plug, I would
Right.
dare to call it nowadays, because they start to now don't care anymore what they hit. Not that it was okay, only private corporation, that's fine. No, it's not fine in general. but hitting now we reached that we're hitting hospitals, especially they're hitting water facilities. So we tend to, and coming from the ICS, most recently from the ICS field, what we call critical infrastructure. So we don't see often hospitals in there, even though they are there. But like some of the big player claim to provide help and support to less, let's say, big type of critical infrastructure sector like water and hospitals. But the point is that those kind of two sectors are let on their own because they are usually public with not much money, so they cannot pay the big vendor fee, and therefore that's not business for them. And despite big claims on the media, the reality is that there is not much service provided there. While energy and all the other manufacturing, these are all private sectors, so there is money there, so they can also kind of look out for themselves, meaning paying the big name of that they need to help them with security. So again, probably a big listener will get tired to see this repeating. But again, this is something I think it's a great if they can do it, because as action may, if it works, as the article say, we'll put it's a kind of also as a test, like is there gonna be somebody internally insider that it's willing? I mean, at the end they work for money; they're mercenaries, so money is probably the best thing you can offer them to turn aside. The point is, again, after we knock off the Hive group, there will be the next one. Exactly. For sure, if it will happen that somebody internally will kind of betray them and will give up everything to really knock them out for good, this will be a big trust issue in the ransomware ecosystem among themselves. Like, oh, look how now we cannot trust anyone else, because as soon as there is a big paycheck coming from some governments, so this is going to be good for us because it will mine their kind of grounds, but still is not. The point is that we need to try to keep, again, goes back to the first news of complexity. Like we have very complex system, and some of our sectors are left on their own. Hospitals, they have no money, so there is no vendor in there. Nobody cares, and it's that they are at the mercy of whoever goes hacking them first. I think on one hand, sometimes I feel like that lawyers, they are required to provide some percentage of their time as a free service to, if you are low income, no income, you get a kind of do feature like a lawyer that is given to you by the system because you cannot afford one. So every lawyer maybe every big vendor should be obliged to provide 2% of the resources for free to hospitals, like public hospitals. If they're private, of course, then you have a different type of income. This is not going to solve the ransomware issues for sure, but it's. I think we need to. The ransomware plague became so big now that we need to have a multi-layer type of approach. We don't need to come to only we hit them now. Okay, there will be the next ransomware gang, which will take the place of them, and we'll keep going. We need to tackle them with this on one side. So let's try to hunt their ground, their belief that they're solid, but also let's try to work towards having a more hardened, more secure, work towards making it more difficult. Not only, as somebody said, imposing costs. Like, hey, you hack, if we catch you, we will catch you. It's going to be tough for you. So the incentive should be okay, maybe it's not that convenient for me anymore. But also we need to keep working on our side because, to make it more difficult for them to reach or to make it easier to detect, working on the technology side, on the vendor side, like I said before. Is it something that is feasible? I don't know. But I haven't seen, again, water and hospital, I feel like they are two so vital sector that nobody cares until they don't go on the news. And then, of course, you want your name as a vendor next to them on the news, and then you are, of course, providing them all the support. But unfortunately, big ICS vendors, and it's more of advertisement out there than what they
Yeah,
actually in reality.
that's unfortunate. And I think it's very interesting what you were suggesting before. Like, what if all of the big vendors were forced to provide, I don't know, maybe discounted kind of services to some specific, I would say, how do you say it? Critical infrastructure
The
companies.
infrastructure, yeah.
That's an interesting thought, and I don't know if that could actually happen, but it will be definitely interesting to explore it as an idea, at least, right? So you actually already partially answered that question that I wanted to ask you, which is a little tricky. I don't even know if it really makes sense, but I'm going to ask
Sure.
it nevertheless. So I was asking myself while reading this, who is the target of this kind of bounties, right? We say that especially the FBI very often do that, right? But who is the main target they are talking to? As you said, probably internal people from the threat group itself that maybe would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
convinced to sell their friends and
No,
get
whoever,
rid,
it says always, whoever has information that may lead
right?
to conviction of one of the members
Yeah, that's
to
the
the
point,
rest.
right? Uh, Technically, anyone could reach out to the FBI and say, "Oh, I have some
Yeah.
information."
You know,
So my
maybe you're my
question,
friend and I'm one of the Hive gang, and you
right,
know that I do this on the side, or you are my partner, and hey, my husband does this. Actually, I feel bad and guilty. Plus,
right,
I hate him because he beats me, and I like the money. So why not?
okay. But I think there's another scenario which I want to suggest and see what you think about this. Do you think this is somehow, let's say, incentivizing random people to make their own investigations to find out about any information about this people right here, this criminals right here, so they can win the bounty and make some money? I mean,
I
you
mean,
are you know a lot more than me about this. There are people doing threat intelligence as their
yep.
work, right? And basically looking information. I think most of the time about tactics and technologies, but you could definitely find out about personal
Yeah, there is
information,
like, I mean, if you see the work of Bellingcat, for example, they
right?
go down to the address of the people. They're
Exactly.
amazing. Why not?
Hmm.
I'm all for it. I mean, it does to me. It does, as long, of course, as you don't incentivize kind of self justice and violence, like dead
Right.
or alive. Like the old wanted poster from the Western, dead or alive. So I don't care if you kill him as long as you bring it to me. As long as you don't incentivize this, it's all game for me. Like you have the skills to track those people down by yourself. I mean, maybe don't do it to the point you expose yourself, because you may risk there is your life at stake here, because those they don't care, those folks.
Yeah.
There have been researchers that have received life threats from those
Right.
gangs. So it's their only risk is like you may incentivize people who may put themselves at risk, but the one that are actually gonna go closer to find those folks are people who are already into the game and they know that what's at stake. And so I'm okay if somebody that is very good at OSINT or whatever,
Mhm.
and can say, hey, you know what, I want to retire. Let me find those. Can I say bastards? Is protected time? Yeah, and get some money and also do something good for society. So,
Yeah.
and they usually know the rule of the game. But yeah, I'm all in for it.
Yeah, went exactly to the point where I was thinking about there are also some risks, right? So maybe I would say do it just if you are confident that you know your stuff and you know how to protect yourself while doing so. Because this is not some kind of joke. You can definitely risk your own life or maybe your
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, you should put the
relatives or
disclaimer. Don't
something.
try this at home while we're talking about
Exactly.
it.
In the final question sorry because of this. So the final question is, will you say that also companies are entitled to ask, for the bounty if they provide some information? Like, I don't know, we have company X doing threat intelligence because they are a provider of threat intelligence.
As long as I don't, I don't know now the specific of these bounties and how. I mean, this is the specific of the U.S. law.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but I'm pretty sure it's absolutely fair that a company, again, as long as they don't breach the law themselves.
Yeah, of course.
So then you can say probably they will, if you provide really good information, maybe you will not get asked too many questions how you got them, and then nobody will know if you did it or not. And it's again probably fair game if you want to be like, okay, nobody should break the law. And also, I don't actually. I'm mostly thinking about. I mean, also is you're not breaking any law. It's just information sitting out there.
Right.
You just need to be good to find them. Like again, I always use the Bellingcat because they're one of the best crew, if not the best, to do this, and they're not breaking any law. They just they just Google shit. They know how to do it properly, and they know how to look for specific information, which tools they use to do specific to search specific type of info. So it's company that do this, why not? Again, as long as you do everything legally, do it. That would be a good round of investment for the company. Why not?
Right. Yeah, I really thought that this could be a very good thing to focus on, right? If you're maybe into the industry and maybe you are supporting your own research with bounties from the
it's at the end it's like a bug bounty program. As a company,
right?
you can do leave a bug bounties. This is a kind of the only difference that here it's good to do, but again, you should know that the stakes are high and the risk involved are not negligible. So it's something, especially as a company, you don't want to. If you are the CEO founder of a company and you decide to do this as a company, you can put at risk everyone working for your company, because then they will not just know that company XYZ is doing this, and they're going to go after whoever is working for this company. So there are many considerations to take into account, but as long as you do it legally, I think whether you are an individual company, it's anyone who provides good information that can get to catch those people, it's game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that I think that was very interesting. I think even from an article where there's so little as an event itself, as a fact itself, right? There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that anyone can learn. Maybe you didn't know about those bounties at all. Maybe you didn't know all of the consequences or of about the research to target those folks, those cyber criminals there. I really, once again, I'm just so glad to be able to have this kind of conversation, and I'm so thankful to you this time, Pasquale, for just joining me today. And hope you also enjoyed a little bit yourself.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, also the people that are looking at this right now, or just as a reminder, this is live. Every episode is live. Stay tuned for new episodes, and if you want to maybe to be notified, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel or all of the other social media or whatever. But also all of these episodes are recorded, be available in the channel. I will also re-upload the audio only on the Spotify, Apple Podcaster, all of those platforms. So feel free to check those if you prefer. And hopefully, I know Pasquale is very busy, so maybe I'll try to invite him once again in I don't know, 1 year or more.
No, hopefully less. Hopefully less.
But for now, I just thank you for just this session was very interesting, very insightful, and thank you for that.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the chat. So hopefully the listeners as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So thank you, everyone. See you on the next episode, and subscribe if you just want to be notified when it happens. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.